A prison that turned into a city, a neighborhood peace paid with fear. From Tocoron's pool and zoo to Chile's mega trial and U.S. RICO charges, this is the Latin chronicle of Tren de Aragua, told from our side, honest about our failures, clear about external demand fueling the blood, and stubborn about what still makes us unbreakable. I'm Arturo, and this is Latin Laura. From Latin America's history to mysteries and true crime to local legends, whispering Latin intrigue. Every tale is triple verified in archives before it reaches your headphones. Hit subscribe as fresh revelations drop every week, ready for your next campfire debate. Listen, on warm nights in our part of the world, when the pavement still holds the day's heat and a lone trumpet leaks from somebody's window, the elders tell the truth the way it deserves to be said, patiently, with irony, with people's names. Not as paperwork, not as a case, but as a chronicle. Pull up a chair. Let the ember of memory glow between us. What you're about to hear is not a rumor. It's the complex story told with the voice of those of us raised on patio dust, salsa on the radio, and the stubborn pride of being alive anyway. The first shot of an era never sounds loud until years later. Turmero, 2006. A man named Larry Alvarez Nunez, Larry Changa, points a gun at someone who refused to sell him auto parts. He pulls the trigger. The courts convict him. On paper, that should be the end. But in our continent, prisons sometimes grow into shadow cities, and a sentence can double as a coronation. That bullet tore a human body. It also opened a corridor where orders and loyalties would travel toward a criminal enterprise with a local brand and a long reach, the Tren de Aragua. If you want to understand how a shadow grows, don't look first at the guns. Look at the speakers. San Vicente, Las Tacariguas Parish, Aragua, late 2015. A Saturday like any other until a plywood stage rises and a reggaeton hook shakes the air, and some famous sonero croons like he lives next door. Kids receive good toys, the kind that don't break in a week. People buy paint and light bulbs to decorate their facades in preparation for Christmas. The flyers say San Vicente Tourist Carnivals 2016, and it feels as if the city has remembered its barrios at last. Clap food bags arrive every 15 days, always on time, while the rest of the town waits months and still doubts. Abuelas who have seen everything raise an eyebrow. Who's paying for this? The answer hums under the music, contributions, the community benefits of extortion. A bill slipped beneath the party plates. The first faces are not soldiers. They call themselves the healthy ones, the sanos, supposedly rehabilitated neighbors, some just out of prison, smiling the way locals do. They organize games, paint murals, and carry clipboards. A community foundation appears, legally registered, perfect for channeling subsidies into recreation and ornament. Money enters the front door squeaky clean and leaves out the back door wearing new clothes. The sanos keep records, distribute the bags, and track who owes, who can, and who resists. And when everyone has tasted the candy, they read the rules. Assembly at the court. A cheap microphone pops when someone breathes. Kids, knees white with dust, fidget in the front row. One by one, the commandments of coexistence turn into law. No talking about what happens in the neighborhood. If you see it, swallow it. Minors inside after 7. No alcohol or drugs for kids. Men, not a single hand raised against the women at home. And above all, don't call the police. For trouble, you go to the luceros. They go to the leader. Justice is handled. No uniforms inside the zone of peace. Laws acquire their teeth the first time they bite. The first bite is exile. Every police officer and ex-officer living here, out. 1 month. It doesn't matter if your beat is in another state, if your mother waters this sidewalk every morning, if your children learn to spell the name of the school upstairs. Leave. Some men laugh it off. Then the deadline passes. They are dragged from their homes at noon, made to kneel, executed in front of doors still tacky with new paint. The second bite is a forced merger. Old thieves, petty bands with shabby codes, join the organization or disappear. If you're deep in drink or drugs, you don't even get the offer. Exile or a grave. The third bite falls on everyone else. Obey and you get peace. The neighborhood, tired of thieves and tired of raids, tastes that bitter order like medicine. If it keeps the worst away, let it rule. Behind the loudspeakers, an organogram hardens. Up top, behind Tocoron's walls, the Aragua Penitentiary, sits a pran with a boy's nickname and a king's hands. Hector Rustenford Guerrero Flores, El Niño Guerrero. Below him, local pranes. On one side, the sanos tally the money and manage deliveries. To the other, the luceros punish and enforce. On the ridges and corners, the gariteros, eyes with radios, track every license plate, every unfamiliar step. A parallel city forms around the oldest idea on earth. If the state does not show up, someone will impersonate it. And sometimes the impersonation includes things people wished the state had done. Fewer robberies, less domestic violence, fewer kids drinking on the curb, terrible and tempting at once. When the state arrives late, it often arrives badly. In 2015, the OLP raids, the so-called Operativos de Liberación del Pueblo, sweep through San Vicente after a decent, hard-working young man is shot dead in what no one dares to call a mistake. Neighbors flood the street. A storm of motorcycles, some of the same riders who waved campaign flags in easier times, circles the governor's office like hornets. Power feels disrespected. Before dawn on May 15th, more than 2,000 officers, GNB and CPX from other states, poured into the neighborhood. The official tally, 3 dead, 200 detained, 800 documented. The barrio's tally, burst doors, vanished cash, new fear, and an oath. No more police here. Days later, grenades hit a GNB detachment and some police stations. Out of that abyss, a deal sidles into place. Never signed in daylight, understood by everyone. You keep the opposition quiet when needed. We don't cross your lines. Sovereignty sliced by district and rented by the hour. Money flows. Extra clap bags get resold. Shops and factories learn the price of contribution. The foundation collects public funds for ornament that end up financing a private treasury. Inside Tocorón, inmates pay la causa, the tax a prisoner pays the pran to keep breathing. Outside, water sputters and fails. Inside, there's a pool, a nightclub, even a zoo, the joke too obvious to laugh at. In Latin America, irony walks barefaced down the street. Once a structure learns to govern, it spreads its influence. From Magdaleno and San Vicente, control pushes into Carabobo, draping a security perimeter along roads that ring the Lago de Valencia. Local cells take names that sound like doorbells, alias plus neighborhood, and all report upward. It's a negative image of the state. No ministries, but a treasury and its own police force. No elections, but loyalties. Then the global tremor arrives. 2020, 2021. Pandemic, the Great Migration. The trend follows our footprints through Colombia, Peru, Chile, Brazil, Ecuador. The worst export a country can ship is pain. The second worst is men who monetize it. Abroad, something cruel unfolds. Crimes committed by a few fall like a long shadow over the faces of the many. Venezuelan migrants with nothing but a backpack and a sleepless child learn what xenophobia tastes like while waiting at bus stops and factory gates. If we are telling the truth, we must tell this too. The group catalyzed violence, and many of the societies that received us let that stain spread to all our names. That is how fear multiplies. That is how the innocent pay twice. Lima, September 2019. The Fiori case cracks the mask. 2 young men, Ruben Matamoros Delgado, Venezuelan, and Jafet Caleb Torrico Jara, Peruvian, enter a cheap hostel and never come back down the stairs. They are butchered and scattered. Black bags bloom across the city. A suitcase near Plaza de Acho holds 3 legs and 2 arms. Authorities later point to a ringleader, Freddy Machelo Romero, who was extradited and convicted. It isn't only the killing, it is the staging. Machetes and cameras and public horror as a language, as a brand. 2 years later, on Chile's northern lip, Arica, Los Gallegos operate as if borderland meant license. Torture houses, kidnapped rivals who go missing into the sand, and rumors. A cop was nearly killed. Stockpiles of weapons and explosives were, until yesterday, accompanied by the soundtrack of gulls and market chatter. In Cerro Chuño, bodies are found on the earth that has been kept too long. Chile does what nations must do when fear tries to govern. It keeps records, investigates, and holds individuals accountable. In November 2024, a mega trial convicted 34 members for homicide, kidnapping, sex trafficking, organized crime, weapons, and explosives. Courtrooms cannot resurrect, but they lend teeth to the word state. Peru bleeds from another edge. Gota a gota, extortion, the slow choke of small shopkeepers and drivers who must pay to work. Mala, November 3, 2022. 3 Colombian moneylenders were shot near the main square. Alexander Arroyav, Kevin Naranjo Salazar, and Andres Naranjos Lescano. A note with the name Los Gallegos lies over them like a stamped signature. Cañete, August 17th. 2023. 3 men ambushed and executed on camera. Christian Saavedra Candela, 32. Norby Saavedra Candela, 26. Christian Flores Sanchez, 31. The video spreads like wildfire because terror is a currency that loses value if you don't spend it constantly. At home, Tocorón finally trembles. September 2023. The state retakes the prison, tunnels under everything, a command room that looks like a music video married to a bunker, the absurd zoo, a pool that still glimmers in the drone shot, armed resistance. At least one member of the Guardia Nacional is killed. That day, the word untouchable loses its capitalization. A flag goes up in the yard. Flags don't erase memories. Chile learns another lesson. Winter 2024. Santiago. Men dressed as police escorted Ronald Ojeda, a Venezuelan ex-lieutenant and political refugee, out of his 14th floor apartment at around 3:15 a.m. Days later, his body turns up buried under concrete in a suitcase. A Colombian suspect, Gocho, is later arrested abroad for extradition. Trials continue. In a hemisphere of exiles, the message is vicious. Even if you cross the border, the past may buy a ticket right behind you. By then, the story speaks English whether it wants to or not. New York City, just after midnight, May 24th, 2024, outside 2290 Davidson Avenue in the Bronx. Shots, 2 people dead, Claretha LaQuesha Daniels, 44, and Justin Lawless, 36. A third victim, about 40, takes a bullet in the arm and lives. The shooters flee on a moped dressed in black, the uniform of modern impunity. Prosecutors will later fold these and other acts into a federal case naming alleged members of the Tren. Queens, August 3rd. Roosevelt Avenue turns into a shooting gallery. A rival is hit, and so is an innocent passerby. America boasts about law and order. It also boasts of freedoms that make guns easy and plentiful. Responsibility travels both ways. Our criminals, yes, but also the North's insatiable appetite for cocaine. Its gun shows where weapons change hands like souvenirs. Its laundromats where dirty money gets a pressed shirt and a glass of whiskey. If you demand we clean our house, arrive with clean hands. Chicago writes an even darker verse. January 28th, 2025, pre-dawn. 3 women are kidnapped, driven to an alley near 78th and Oglesby in South Shore. They are lined up and shot in the head. 2 die, Oriana M. Rodriguez Perez, 37, Yaris Norelis Jimenez Castillo, 39. The third, hit in the face and chest, staggers into the frame of a neighbor's doorbell camera, begging for help. Survival sometimes walks like someone dragged out of barbed wire. In March, U.S. Marshals arrested a 32-year-old man in Georgia, Ricardo Gonzalez, accused of ranking in the group and of the kidnapping, murders, and attempted murder. In April, the Department of Justice announces the first RICO case against the Tren in the United States. 27 defendants, charges that read like the continent's worst habits: murder, kidnapping, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, robbery, and firearms. In June, during an arrest, a member lunges at an ICE agent and an FBI agent. And in September, Lima's transit lines turn into obituary columns. At least 5 bus drivers murdered in an extortion wave. 24 arrests, 32 searches. Hold one name long enough to give the numbers a face. A driver called Arturo Ramon shot in front of his passengers in San Juan de Miraflores. How many more routes did fear erase that day? None of this happens by accident. The group is not a wildfire, it's a grid. The head communicates with ministers, governors, mayors, judges, and senior police officials. Those conversations are not televised, they are practiced. Local members are prohibited from contacting the police. Touch a badge, and you're stained, a word that can mean exile or a grave dug at night. If a killing is needed in a neighborhood where the victim is beloved, another crew travels in to make it look like a neutral clash, not a sentence from within. Territories are respected, missions are assigned, money moves up while pain ripples down. It is a machine. It collects its tithe. It recites a catechism of control. Now we step slightly aside to say what must be noted in our own voice. We failed in places. We let the romance of the malandro, the slick outlaw who plays smart and breaks rules with style, seduce our songs and our politics. The state, in its raids and its arrogance, blurred neighborhoods with hideouts. With that, it handed the group its best sales pitch. We deliver peace. Exhausted by waiting for a decent police force, some communities tolerated a private one. Hunger's economy did the rest. A clap bag can silence a complaint when the last cup of rice becomes a story. We hold that broken mirror and speak the truth we usually whisper, rebuilding a human state from the sidewalk up. Schools that open, teachers who can afford chalk, clinics with antibiotics, police who protect, courts that move. This is not romanticism. It is the only vaccine against the vacuna. And we defend stubbornly our philosophy. Truth here is not a concrete block, it is a mantle woven by many hands, a braid of memories checked by life. We are practiced at holding contradictions without shattering. We are, above all, experts at distinguishing control from care. Buen vivir is not a slogan. It's the stubborn daily practice of the barrio, sharing the pot, sweeping the walkway, treating every kid like our own. That culture was kidnapped to camouflage extortion. That same culture, once organized, defeats the mask that it wears. Names, then, because names are the bones of memory. We say Ruben Matamoros and Jafet Torrico, so Lima keeps lighting their candles. We say Alexander Arroyave, Kevin Naranjos, and Andres Naranjos in Mala, so their families hear those syllables when the city quiets. We say the brothers in Cañete, Christian and Norby Saavedra Candela, and Christian Flores Sanchez, so the execution video isn't the last word. We say Ronald Ojeda, so every exile knows we will not forget a man buried in another nation's concrete. We say Claritha LaQuesha Daniels and Justin Lawless in the Bronx, so New York's daily noise won't erase the echo of their minute on the sidewalk. We say Oriana M. Rodriguez Perez and Yeris Norales Jimenez Castillo in Chicago. We say Arturo Ramon, the bus driver. We speak the names we can and leave a small silence for those the courts still shield. In Latin America, we don't believe the dead are gone. We think they stand just behind us, urging us to speak. And sovereignty, let's finally call it what it is. It isn't a flag over a palace. Sovereignty is the answer to this. Who can enter your street at midnight with a gun and not be stopped? For too long, sovereignty in Aragua lived inside a prison. In Arica, during Los Gallegos' reign, people lived in houses that echoed screams. In Lima's transport lines, sovereignty was a ledger in someone else's pocket. In New York and Chicago, sovereignty sometimes wore an FBI jacket, sometimes a hoodie, and sometimes rode a scooter. We can acknowledge that our countries have failed at sovereignty without accepting that might makes right. The strongest are always one day from learning the taste of dust. The patient endures. Do not misread this as a plea for absolution. We speak plainly to the North, too. The comfortable rooms where our instability is debated over clean tablecloths, where a little white line and a little shareholder asterisk turn into our funerals. Your demand is our supply chain. Your loose gun markets are our bullet wounds. Your financial laundries rinse our blood and return it as polished capital. If we are to be lectured, let it be by those who have emptied their pockets of complicity. Until then, don't mistake our refusal to bow for blindness. So what now? If this were a fable, we would end with a single moral etched in stone. But the truth we honor is perspectival, corrected by memory, amended by experience. Here is what we know tonight. Our region is strong, not the strength of battalions, the strength of abuelas who conjure a 7-person meal from a ration and a prayer, the resilience of kids who turn a cracked cord into a tiny republic of equal chances, the strength of women holding the line at the door when the weak returns home drunk. We own our mistakes. We allowed power to be privatized because we were tired, hungry, scared. We watched the state insult us and tolerated counterfeit peace because, from 4 meters away, it looked like the real thing. We let the outlaws' bravado sweeten our playlists. We will teach different songs. And yes, monsters fall. Tocorón fell. Los Gallegos were named in open court. RICO, that long American shadow, now crosses the map. Hydras remain. Cut one head and another learns to hiss. The answer is not only force, it is also the patient reconstruction of sovereignty from the block up, schools with lights on and teachers with chalk, clinics where antibiotics don't require a miracle, patrol cars whose arrival loosens spines, not tightens them, courts quick enough to be believed and fair enough to be obeyed. It is cultural work too. Demystify the gangster, unmarket the malandro. Teach children that real power isn't the silence you can force, it's the laughter you can protect. Picture this with me, because this is what we are really defending. Every Latin city has a night market where the air smells like corn and oil, and a brass line threads the crowd. See the strings of bulbs hanging from cables. See kids chasing each other between plastic chairs. A mother slaps a hand away from a hot griddle and kisses the same hand a second later. A couple leans close because love burns food cold. This is the scene the group tried to claim with gifts, rules, and blood. It failed because the plaza belongs to everyone, or it isn't a plaza at all. We have told you what happened and how it felt. We have kept the names lit, accepted the scoldings that belong to us, and pointed to the other hands on the rope. When the ember fades, the night will fold back around us. But you will remember. And memory, in our philosophy, is a promise that the boys with radios and the men with titles will find fewer places to hide, because wherever they go, people are telling this story, and stories make maps. And on a map, even monsters are temporary. Listen again, just for a second. Far off, a motorcycle climbs a hill, a radio crackles. A mother calls a child in from the balcony. Somewhere, a judge files a paper that will matter next year. Somewhere, a daughter presses a photo to her chest. The tide gathers. Culture hums its steady song. The dead lean in like guardians. We are here. We will still be here in the morning. And that morning, that ordinary Latin morning, with bread that costs too much but tastes like home anyway, with the bus driver nodding you aboard, with a neighbor lowering the music out of respect, with a teacher rolling up her sleeves and saying, "Start where you left off," is precisely what monsters fear. Muchas gracias. Thanks for trekking the hidden trails of Latin America with me. If tonight's story unsettled you, subscribe and ring the bell, because Latin America's darkest stories are far from over.